next one is going to be Sampo Pasanen from Reaktor. And again, we actually got some really good questions already, so feel free to ask those in the live chat. And Sampo is going to talk about international stuff. So basically, we are very often interested in what the whole industry could learn from the projects which have been done by Finnish companies but abroad. So Sampo, I would like welcome you next to the stage. It's really cool to have you here. I'm really eager to hear what kind of topics you have in mind about this international aspect.
Excellent, thank you, Antti. Super excited to be here. I have some learnings that I want to bring to you regarding digitalization in large B2C companies that we work with, and what can we learn from them. And it's been an exciting journey. I hope that I can share some ideas to all of you today. If we start from the kind of the number one point that I think is fundamental for a company's success is that how strategic do you see that the digitalization is? And the best companies that we work with are investing heavily in digitalization. They talk about it. And I would like to raise a point or one example from Kasper Rorsted, from CEO of Adidas, who stated clearly that our single most important store in the world is our .com store. There is no comparison. There is no comparison. I mean that this is a statement to the company where the CEO says that this is the thing and this is the future. The point of course is not to undermine the relevance of everything else, but it's to highlight the fact that the online store has become their most important store, and this sends the message to the company that these are the areas where we need to invest in. These are becoming even more and more important, and that sets the tone to the whole company. It's not like the online store or digitalization is an afterthought in the business in itself. It's becoming the business itself, and that's kind of the fundamental understanding when you realize that our company is becoming different, and that needs to change. Okay, so the point that I was trying to make is that leaders of the best companies that are competing in the international markets are seeing the transition to digital. They are embracing it. They are communicating about it, and we can see that it affects not only the stores, but it affects how you train people, what kind of competencies do you need to have in the organization. It affects your logistics, the technical solutions, and you try to build these end-to-end streams that are actually geared to the current online world, and that's a huge change for companies. So companies are fundamentally gearing towards the transition, and that's we can see this not only at in our customers, but also in the competitive landscape. And if you look at Sweden, they invest heavily on digitalization. They invest way more than Finnish companies do. Even if you look at the percentages of their investments, it's not generic. There are companies in the world, of course, that are lagging behind and companies that are leading, but we can see that some companies are really taking the advantage, and that they want to be leading the transition in their own domain, and then grasping kind of the market share that is currently available to grasp. If we take a look at, for example, from the Finland's perspective, there is Mehiläinen, which has first transformed themselves. They are building services and their own processes that fulfill or deliver digital services to current customers, but it's not only there that they've stopped. They are seeing the opportunity to become more international. One of their approaches to internationalization is through digital services that they are selling, and this is super interesting development of in a company's life, and that's something that tells a lot about how strongly they see the digital, not only in improving their own operations, but also as an opportunity to grow and to lift the value of the whole company. So digitalization is strategic. The second point that I want to make is that design plays a significant role in B2C companies. The tech part that we are super good at, that's something that you can really differentiate with. You can that's the technology that helps you to it helps you to differentiate in the market, because we Finnish people, we know tech. We have seen that in a number of cases at our customers, and it's something that differentiates Finns in general. But to get to play there, you have to be on par with the design. So it's got to be in mint condition. And if you are not able to meet the requirements in the design, then you are not entering the game. So if you look at, for example, the companies that are seeing things hugely visual, so design, and by design I mean especially the visual aspects of it, and I'm coming down to that later. When you're talking about companies that produce content, where content is the main product that they have, then typically the visualization is playing a major part, and being able to meet that level in your work is something that gives you the access to the game itself. The companies expect that things are visual and working in all of the services that they are building. The expectation levels for visualization in digitalization has risen highly, and of course a person who has a tech background like me would have liked to have code solve all the problems, but we are it's becoming totally clear that if you are not up to par with the design, then you are not even playing the tech game at all. Then if you come to brands, it's not so much about it's not only about the visuals, and but it's very much about how you fulfill the brand promise also on your digital services. And I think that Jukka brought out a super important point in his speech regarding the use of resources and computing power, and how sleek and fast are the services that you develop. And I think that the interesting point here is that it actually does matter. And if you look at the load speeds of online sites, many of them are not up to par, and it's clear when you have high volumes that being able to reduce the loading times of pages of the site and everything, it increases user retention, and it increases conversion rates. So the users are actually choosing services that fulfill the kind of the expectations also on the speed and experience. And I think that these types of things become even more important when you're talking about economies of scale, and I'll be coming back to that later. But so design, as in visual aspects, is a key to entering the game. But then it comes down to delivering the experience, which is up to the user experience, meaning how logical the site is, how easy it is to use. And then and that also comes down to technology, how fast it is, how reliable it is. Does it feel like familiar? Is it easy and smooth? And then when you have that combination, then you are seeing the numbers that these types of companies see when they are launching improvements to their sites. So design is kind of a key to enter the game, and I think that this is kind of a message for both the consultancies like us who work with these type of companies, but also to Finnish companies that want to excel in of course also in the Finnish market, but especially when you are internationalizing and trying to win the hearts and minds of people in general, and this is a distinction where we can see that Finland has to learn from other countries. My third point is economies of scale, and I mean this actually in two ways. I mean that when you have huge user volumes, it can be a question of both user acquisition, the sales conversions, it's the ability to increase revenues, so to say, but it's also a cost question. So when you are launching a new service or a new content to a huge potential audience, and you know that it's going to peak a lot, then you are suddenly dealing with needs to rapidly scale hundreds or thousands of servers, and then because scaling to that size is extremely expensive, you need to be able to downscale that also, and building these types of resource scaling automations to sites and services where you have a wide variation of the user base and the load becomes essential, and this is something that is different from sites where you have smaller volumes and where you're selling smaller amount of items versus the sites where you have huge volumes, because for smaller sites it might not make any sense to hone the last bits and pieces of performance and experience, because it might not be the ROI would not be there. But if you are looking at these volumes where there are huge amounts of users, then suddenly all those single percentages become meaningful, and that's something that you need to take into consideration. So to starting to wrap this up, digitalization is strategic. So it's not. It changes you. It's you have to start thinking about your business also from the perspective of how do we look like when we are thinking of digital first, and it changes how you what you talk about in the leadership team meetings. It changes how you train your people, because it's not enough that leaders see the value. You have to have the capabilities of the business owners, product owners, the teams, and to set that up is challenging. That's the resource that we are lacking in the world, and that's one core element of seeing the digitalization as strategic, that how do I build the capabilities of my organization. Second point was design. it can't be an afterthought. It has to be on par with the tech, and economies of scale for large organizations, where and large sites where you have high volumes, and there you have to start thinking differently on how you build your services, because honing the last mile of the experience is a major boost for profitability and revenue growth. So starting to wrap this up, there was a minor unexpected event, and I have to figure out even more engaging ways to make sure that when you have to give a speech to millions of users like you there, that the potential disturbances have engaging stuff to consume, and that's maybe my takeaway from this speech. Lastly, I want to say that digitalization is people business. As Jukka and Michael talked about, the software is complex and the IT is complex, and you need to be able to communicate the importance of the changes that you are proposing and the approaches that you are taking, and most of the work is about creating the mutual understanding that what we are trying to achieve, and then finding the best way there. And then when you have super talented engineers and people implementing and designing the solutions, then you are on a winning streak. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sampo. And I think this small visit just made the presentation more human-like. I think we all have had this situation in our life. So this is kind of a COVID time presentation.
I've never prepared this much for a COVID time talk, and still apparently not nailing it well enough yet.
I think that's perfect. There are a couple of questions, and the first one is, yes, when we are in the international field, and especially the case Adidas, the Adidas.com is a huge brand already, and in many Finnish companies, their brands are not that huge. So what do you think about kind of marketplaces for selling stuff, not from the one brand, but from the many brands? Do you see any chances for Finnish business there?
I definitely see a chance. I think that it's fundamentally about the type of products that you are selling. So if your products are unique, then you should just find and utilize all the channels that you have to distribute that. And I think that some companies could even, if you are totally like product oriented, you could even think of opportunities of selling purely through marketplaces. And I think that these types of decisions are super important. The main questions, I think that if you consider, should I build my own marketplace to sell my products, or should I use the existing ones? I think it's very much comes to the nature of your product, that if you have a super strong brand, then can you be represented in the digital realm in the same way as you expect from the brand. So if you sell through Amazon, you will not be able to get the level of experience that you might want in some environments. And I think that this is something to consider. And then so this is exactly my point, in that the companies are in very different types of stages, and for some it could be just take Shopify and put it on, and it's not that huge project, and you have a working online store, and that's perfectly fine. But then when you start scaling and when you start finding these scaling opportunities, then it's a question of am I gonna start building the marketplace and improving that, and or utilizing the existing marketplaces that are out there. And I think that I'm sorry, it would be great if I could give kind of an easy answer to this, but I think that this specific question is of a nature where you just have to look at your business and your products and then make decisions based on that.
Okay, thank you very much. There is another question about the culture. So what is the role of culture in client side in creating success when creating a digital services?
This is a super interesting question. I think that culture is kind of a lever, and when you have a strong culture that's geared towards the digitalization and you are able to bring people on board, then you have a higher chance of succeeding. But it's the ultimate question of who really makes it in different businesses. It comes down to the product. So of course, how companies operate, it's starting to also affect how people and consumers perceive your company. So your culture might be also kind of an asset when you're selling goods, but in most cases, consumers care about the end product, and if it meets their needs, the quality expectations, the cost expectations, and it's fundamentally about are you able to deliver excellent products and services to your customers, or products and services that meet the expectations on price and quality, and what culture comes into is kind of it's a tool that has the opportunity to raise the consistency and the probability of succeeding. And it's a long-lasting thing. And I think that for example, if I look at how we see culture and how I think about culture, for example, at Reaktor, it's like that's super hard to copy, and it's and you shouldn't. But it's also it takes time to build a consistent culture, and it can be a huge asset for the company. So I think that culture. It's such a huge and it has so many levels that it's even a bit difficult to specifically put in place. I think that it plays many roles in organizations, in from hiring the best talent to delivering the best products. But maybe one point that I want to take from culture is that it's sometimes seen as the culture means that you have a kind of a good feeling about everything. I think that cultures that are that succeed are also geared towards thinking about the customer, and how you deliver the results, and then the aspects of having these having a culture where you feel that you feel being part of the culture, being part of the team, being part of the company. That's kind of also there's also all these internal outcomes that come from that type of thinking. And wide question. Let's take a whole another seminar for talking about culture, and then I'll be more than happy to participate.
It's good point, and actually I will lead that to the final question, and especially from the cultural part, because our key focus here was that what can Finnish companies learn from the international companies about the digital, and especially related to a culture. So what do you think? What should we take away from the international companies?
The cultures are in very different types of stages or positions. If you look at digitalization, and if you look at, for example, if you look at Amsterdam, if you look at New York, if you look at Dubai, they are all very different also in terms of how they or Helsinki and Finland, that how they think about digitalization. And I think that, for example, if you look at Dubai, it's much more fixed cost, fixed price projects, or fixed scope projects. It's the culture of buying in general is already very different, and the visual aspects of things are super important, and the talking about the technical quality and so on. It's not similar to what we see, for example, in Finland, and there are these cultural differences, and it also so cultures do play many roles also here. They affect how you sell and buy. They affect how you operate with those organizations, and within those organizations. We've also seen situations where, for example, we have had people from Finland working in US, and they are super talented technical engineers, but kind of the Finnish level of communication in general is way less than our American friends have, and sometimes we noticed in the early days that some of our people were seen as rude because they are not engaging in the small talk in a way that's expected in those cultures. So there are many things that you see there, and then we are thinking, like, how can they, like, why they see problems with this guy. He's one of our best people, and he's delivering amazing amounts of value, but it's like there you just have to meet also the cultural requirements, so to say.
All right, thank you very much, Sampo. It was so cool to have you here.
Thank you.